Hello, my name is Budhwani and I'm with Investible Realty. I'm live here today at the DFW Investors monthly networking event. I'm with George Roddy Jr., who has been in the business of real estate for over 21 years. In the last 21 years, he's only missed 2 auctions. So, without further ado, let me turn it over to George. George, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Zul.
Pleasure having you.
Pleasure.
George, you've been in the business for a long time. You bought over 250 homes personally.
Yep. And
you also represented a hedge fund here in Texas where you guys bought over 8,000 homes.
That's correct.
That is incredible, my friend.
I know enough to be dangerous.
Well, hey, watch out for this guy if you're an investor. But George, you and your family have specialized in the foreclosure business for over the last, 3 decades?
Yeah, going on 5 now.
What?
Yeah.
5 decades, wow. And I know your father initially started the business and then
Correct.
You took over about 20 years ago.
I mean, I can't officially say I took it over because he's probably in the office more than I am. So, but I do oversee a lot of where we're going, products that we put out in the past and products that we're coming out in the future. So,
nice.
I'm honored to be a part. Obviously, it's a family-owned business, so it's always a pleasure, kind of, and there's always some ups and downs with working with a family, but
Sure.
It's enjoyable every day.
Well, George, with your loads of experience, what can you tell me about the current foreclosure market?
Zul, we've seen some strong, it's sellers. It's a seller's market out there, and so whenever it's a seller's market, foreclosure is going to go down. We've seen it from 2005 when there were 50,000 foreclosures. I mean, no one could give away their house back in 2005, 6, 7. Now we're down to roughly around 10,000. So you can see from 50,000 volume down to 10. The foreclosures are very low right now. There's still opportunities, but when it's a seller's market, people always ask me, is this a good time to buy a house or venture into foreclosures? And my short answer is yes. Anywhere you can find, deeply discounted properties, you should pursue. And foreclosures, although there's less of them, there's still a few gems each and every month.
Well, I've heard from a lot of investors, if you're not in the game, you're never going to really, make any money. So I do like the idea. If you see the opportunity out there, definitely you should jump on it.
Yeah.
In regards to the market, I know you just touched upon saying it's a seller's market.
Right.
And I believe it's been a seller's market for the last 3 to 5 years, roughly.
Absolutely.
But where do you see the market going towards in the terms of inventory specifically?
Inventory's pretty low right now, but I feel like it's, I think we've peaked. Now, do I think we're going to dip? No. I think that we've stabilized, and I think the prices have stabilized. So I do feel that some listings are on the market a little bit longer, and people are trying to continue to push the market, and the market's pushing back. They're saying, hey, appreciation. So I feel like in the next 12 to 24 months, we're going to see a little bit more inventory, a little bit heavier days on the market. I do envision as the market softens or kind of stabilize, we will see an increase, probably about 10% in the number of foreclosures that are posted each and every month in the next 12 to 24 months. Yeah.
Interesting. Well, what advice would you give to someone like me who's never really been to an auction? Actually, I've been to one, and it seemed like it was a zoo out there, in my opinion. What advice would you give to someone new that's trying to get into this business?
Zul, it's a little intimidating. What I found is I always suggest someone be a tourist the first month, right? Hang out there for a couple hours. The biggest thing that I see that newbies, when they're going to the courthouse steps, is they don't have their report or their bid report in the right format. A lot of these trustees and auctioneers are crying properties that are not in alphabetical order. So you really have to have your list prepared for the way they cry it, which is they usually will say the borrower's name. A lot of people have their list in alphabetical order by street name, but it's in the borrower's name is the way I put my list together. Number 2 is do your research. A lot of people are showing up not knowing if there's any delinquent taxes on the property, not knowing if there are any IRS or privileged liens. Do your title research, and always never bid on a property without seeing the property. I personally heard of stories where people bought a house because of the numbers instead of actually looking at the product to see that it was half burnt down. So always look at the property, do your title search, and when at the auction, prepare your list that's conducive for success.
Interesting. Well, hey, great tidbits from the expert himself, George Roddy Jr. here. George, you and your family had the Rowdy Roundup for many, many years.
Yes.
And Tim Herridge, had his DFW Investors for some time, and recently you guys decided to merge the two events.
Absolutely.
And it's been massive. I've been fortunate enough to attend the last two events. It's my third. How do you see this event being a benefit for investors in Dallas-Fort Worth?
Tim and I have we're like-minded. When he first approached me to talk about the DFW, the REI Expo, and that was probably 10 years ago, we started talking, and so he basically, our philosophies were in line, and they continue to be in line. We're trying to help investors. There's a lot of great gurus and coaches out there, but I want to make sure, and Tim is the same way, we want to make sure that we align people with local companies and local perspectives, because what works great in New Jersey might not work so great in Dallas or in Texas. So we wanted to bring, he's got a strong following. We feel like we have a strong following, so it's a perfect match, and we're looking forward to bigger and better things.
Well, hey, great. Being a part of the last three events, I think the first event we had a little over 250. Last event we had right under 400, and this event we're actually planning on going over 400 guests. So should be interesting to see.
Absolutely.
George, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Again, this is Budhwani with Investible Realty signing off here live at the DFW Investors Networking event. Thank you and have a great day.